council meeting. The first item on the agenda is apologies for absence. Over to you, Mr. Bosden.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Got apologies from councillors Adam Davis, Mike Day, Robert Francis Davis, Elliot King, Sarah Keaton, Peter May, Will Thomas and Andrew Williams.
Thank you. The next item is disclosures of personal and prejudicial interests. I'll hand you over to Ms. Meredith, please.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I circulated an email yesterday. I'm going to slightly modify my advice to you tonight, actually, on reflection of the implementation of the Renting Homes Wales Act. So a lot of you have queried with me what your position is if you either rent private accommodation or you are indeed a private landlord. So I will take a block declaration for personal interest only if you fall into that category. So that's either you're in rented private accommodation or you're a private landlord. The Act does actually, and the report does touch upon the position of the private sector. So on that basis, I'll take a personal interest only. And then secondly, and this is where I'm modifying my advice slightly, in relation to the report, it very much focuses on, and the recommendations go to the council as a social landlord. So if you have family members, close family members who are in council accommodation and have a tenancy agreement, then again, I would ask that you declare a personal interest only. In my advice, I indicated that it would be personal and prejudicial, but on reflection, this legislation comes into effect in any event in December. So on that basis, I consider your interest will be personal only. If there are any members that are council tenants, then I would advise that you declare both the personal and a prejudicial interest. So that is my only advice that I have to you tonight. It is in relation to agenda item 9, and I will take that block declaration now. So it's a block declaration for all those councillors, personal interest only, that are either in private rented accommodation, that are private landlords, or have close family associates who are in council accommodation. So if you could please raise your hand for personal interest only.
The leader wants to come in, I believe. Leader.
Sorry, could I just ask for clarification on the term close family relative? Because like many people here, I'm sure we've got extensive families, some of whom may be in different accommodation, and usually with declarations, we only usually declare if they contribute to your household or if they're an immediate family member. So are you able to give any further advice in terms of what we should include in that?
The Ombudsman would define a close family associate to be somebody who you interact with quite frequently. So would be mother, father, son, daughter. Your extended family does not normally come within that definition. So if you have extended family members who you see very rarely, they do not come within that definition. So you are looking at close personal associates. So just going back to the declaration of interest, please raise your hand, virtual hands if you're attending remotely, please, if you wish to declare a personal interest only on the advice that I have given. Please remember to fill in the forms. And I know that there are some councillors who also wish to make some other declarations in relation to other agenda items.
Councillor Jeff Jones, did you want to declare something else? Councillor Jones, did you want to declare something else? No. No, sorry, you didn't. Did you, Mary? No. Okay, just remind everybody that you fill in the declaration verbally as well as written. Okay, thank you. The next item is the minutes, to approve and sign the minutes of the previous meetings held as a correct record, and that's on pages 1 through to 10. I'll go through them page by page if you like. It's page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. All in agreement? Thank you. Anybody against? Any abstentions? No. Thank you. Councillor Evans. Oh, sorry.
Just in terms of disclosures of personal interest, I have a personal interest in item 12, question 5. I'm a trustee of the Chinese and Wales Association, and they're a tenant of the Grand Theatre.
Okay, the next item is the written responses of questions asked at the last ordinary meeting of council. And
Thank you,
then,
Presiding Member. I wonder, can I have clarification from the Cabinet Member on item question 3, which you've kindly given an answer to now, and that is about the transfer of management. It's probably my own fault, and I wish to apologise if it is my own fault. I was also asked about asset management transfer to community groups, but also the actual, have we transferred any of our physical assets as well? So if I can, I'll ask that again in a written form, but just to give you information in first hand.
Yeah, can I just give a guarantee? I will get that updated up this. I looked at it myself to agree, yeah.
okay, we move on then to the announcements of the presiding member. I've got a number of announcements tonight, and the first one, unfortunately, is going to be condolences. And it's for Mrs. Iris Richards, who's the former Lady Mayoress. It's with sadness that I refer to the recent death of Iris Richard, former Lady Mayoress. Iris was the wife of the Honorary Alderman, former Lord Mayor and former Councillor Ewan Richard. The next is former Councillor Miles Thomas. It's with sadness that I refer to the recent death of former Councillor Miles Thomas. Miles represented the Newton ward on the City and County of Swansea from the 21st of October 2010 till the 4th of May 2017. Another one is former Councillor Sonia Morris, and it's with sadness that I refer to the recent death of former Councillor Sonia Morris. Sonia represented the Uplands ward on the Swansea City Council from 1992 until 1996. And can I ask you all to stand for a minute's silence, please? Thank you. Okay, thank you. On a happier note, I am delighted to announce that the City and County of Swansea Pensions Fund has been shortlisted in several categories in the LAPF Awards 2022. The awards recognise excellence in the fields of the pension fund investment. The winners will be announced on the 15th of December 2022, and the shortlisted categories being the LGPS Fund of the Year, assets under 2.5 billion at the 31st of March 2022, the LGPS Investment Strategy of the Year, and the Best Climate Change category. The next is the Estates Gazettes Awards 2022. I'm delighted to announce that the City and County of Swansea has been shortlisted in the City of the Year Award category of the Estates Gazette Awards 2022. The award seeks to celebrate the UK cities and the work they are doing to create livability, successful places. The winners will be announced on the 2nd of November 2022. We're also shortlisted entries for the Welsh Housing Awards 2022. I'm delighted to announce that the Swansea Council has been shortlisted in several categories for the Welsh Housing Awards 2022. The awards celebrate excellence within the Wales housing sector. The winners will be announced on the 18th of November 2022, and the shortlisted categories are being delivering high quality homes, shortlisted project Building Better Homes in Hillview, organisation Swansea Council. The next category is Housing Team of the Year. The shortlisted project is the Housing Rents Team and the organisation again, Swansea Council. Category Working in Partnership. Shortlisted project, the Swansea Standard, providing affordable low carbon housing for the future, submitted by Welsh Schools of Architects, WSA. And the next, the organisation is the Low Carbon Built Environment, LCBE, Welsh Schools of Architecture, Cardiff University and Swansea Council. The next is Sustainability in Housing. The shortlisted project is Whole House Energy retrofit of 6 terrace bungalows in Swansea, driving towards zero carbon targets, submitted by Welsh School of Architects, WLSA. And the organisation Low Carbon Built Environment, LCBE, Welsh School of Architecture in Swansea Council. And the next announcement is Council in January. Due to uncertainty around the budget announcements by the UK and the Welsh Government, both myself and the group leaders have agreed that the Council meeting on the 26th of January 2023 will be cancelled, with additional Council meetings being put into calendar at the beginning of January and on the 2nd of February 2023. Formal notification will be forwarded to all councillors in due course. And I've been asked to remind people that there are warm blankets for Ukraine. There are various supermarkets throughout the area taking collections, so any collections will be greatly received. Thank you very much. That's the end of my announcements. And I move on then to the announcements of the Leader of the Council. Over to you, Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Just to say, picking up on what you've said in terms of the uncertainty around the budget, I did make some statements at Cabinet, but I thought it appropriate as well to report them to Council. The position currently is extremely worrying in terms of the finances for local government across the UK. In Wales, WLGA estimates that the financial black hole could be as much as £750 million. And that is largely driven by 2 factors. One, the energy deal that a number of public sector organisations will be on, where we pre-buy our energy through the Crown Commercial Services. That deal comes to an end early next year. And the current cap being provided by the UK government also is due to end at the present time in March. So we are hopeful that on the 17th of November, we'll get further clarity in terms of help that may extend beyond that. But if the UK government is unable to extend the cap, then our energy bills at the current rates would raise from around £5 million to £20 million. So you can see that is a significant challenge for any authority and for any business to take. On top of that, a number of pay awards are now close to being agreed. But again, we do not have funding commitments for those pay awards, and members will know that pay is negotiated nationally, but the bills are paid locally. So it's always been the convention that both the governments in London and Cardiff would provide money to, if not entirely cover, but certainly cover the majority of that increase. At the present time, we have no commitment for any pay awards to be funded. So that would again leave pressure on the authority in excess of £10 million. So you get to around £30 million. And then on top of that, we have general inflation pressures, which members will know have been reported in the press. Inflation is top 10%. So you'd be looking at, even to stand still, there is a significant inflationary pressure upon the authority across all of our services. So it is a very, very worrying situation. Myself, as Deputy Leader of the WLJ, and Andrew Morgan as Leader of WLJ, have made public statements in terms of what that means or could mean. But again, it's important that members know that we do have to, ask UK government and the Treasury to step in and extend the help, because they are the only government in the UK with the financial firepower to actually cover these sorts of pressures. They can do that by providing additional money to the Welsh Government. And of course, we'll be lobbying the Welsh Government hard for that money to come to help assist local government. But I have to say as well, I'm aware that the pressures facing the health service across the UK are severe. And in terms of energy, my understanding is that there's over £200 million worth of energy pressures in the health service at the present time, because they would be affected in the same way as local government in terms of the increase in energy costs. So it is an extremely worrying position. And again, I intend writing to the Prime Minister with the support of the Chamber to ask UK government to make sure that they provide ongoing support past the 1st of March. My second one is linked to that. So knowing that we may be facing an extremely challenging financial situation, in conjunction with the Chief Executive and the Chief Finance Officer, we have suspended applications to the Economic Recovery Fund. Applications that have been submitted, where we can determine them, we will, and they are determined on the basis of when they came in, the business case for doing so, whether there was match funding, other stuff, and we will be able to communicate decisions very shortly, if you haven't been informed already, whether your application has been approved or whether it's suspended for the time being, pending further clarity in terms of our financial position. But it's prudent that we do that. The Economic Recovery Fund, as members will know, was topped up again this year to £20 million. And we've taken the opportunity to set that aside, essentially to assist with some of the pressures we may face. And I'm sure members will appreciate that it's prudent for us to do that. On a more positive note, attended the Estates Gazette Awards last night. Swansea was nominated and shortlisted as one of the 4 top cities in the UK for the City of the Year award. We were up against Cardiff, Newcastle and Birmingham. The award eventually went to Birmingham, but we think the determining factor may have been the Commonwealth Games that they hosted this year. But it's the first time ever that we've been nominated in that category, and at such a prestigious level. So nationally, I think we are continuing to punch above our weight. My thanks especially go to members of the team like Hugh Mowbray and Lee Richards, who've worked tirelessly to deliver things like the arena project, but also other major projects across the city. And again, hopefully we can be back there next year and hopefully walk away with the silverware. My final one is just a reminder, members will have had a note to ask them to support the Together at Christmas event, which we're able to run again this December. Councillor Wendy Lewis is working with JR Catering to make sure that those who wish to volunteer can do so. There is, if at all possible, a requirement for you to be able to be available all day for that, because there are training requirements that needed to be undertaken in terms of what JR Catering need you to do. If there are any issues with that, then obviously please let myself or Councillor Lewis know, and we'll do what we can to accommodate, but it is something that will require you to be available for the entire day if you can be. And again, it's a great cause, and again, unfortunately, given the cost of living crisis and the other pressures that we're seeing out in our communities, we do expect a high take-up of the Together at Christmas event this year. But thank you, President Mayor. Oh, sorry, one final thing. I just wanted to pay tribute to the work done by our teams out yesterday. I'm aware that we received around 200 calls in a very small period of time. There was the intensity and short period of rain. 30 millimetres of rain fell in a very, very short period of time, placing huge pressure on our services to respond. They did, of course, do an excellent job. We understand that there were 4 river flood alerts that were triggered as a result of the sharp calls, but we do know that due to the high demand at that peak, that a number of calls unfortunately were not able to be responded to. We are working through that at the present time. No criticism of the service. They were under incredible pressure for a very short period of time. And again, if members have sent in emails or will be following up, all of those will be responded to. And of course, our teams are continuing to deal with any ongoing flooding issues that we have observed because of the bad weather. As a result of that, of course, as well, we know that there is further bad weather planned for the weekend or anticipated for the weekend. And unfortunately, due to safety issues and the fact that we are expecting high winds and heavy rain, the fireworks display is unable to take place this year due to the fact that we were going to launch the fireworks from a barge in the bay, and that isn't able to be done safely due to the weather that we're expecting. But the events team, who are always amazing, are now moving to focus their efforts on the Christmas parade, which will take place on the 20th of November. Thank you, Presiding Member.
Presiding Member, can I thank the leader for his explanation about the flooding? I went to see him earlier on to explain the fact that many members in the chamber from right across the problems with phone calls, and I think it's very, very important that we communicate with everyone and with the leader who we phoned or we couldn't get through. It was a very worrying time for a lot of houses that were flooded, and we as a council would do our very, very best to stop that, and I thank the leader for his commitment to do something about that. Thank you.
Before I go any further, we are having technical problems with people online, so just to announce that. And I know Councillor Matthews, you wish to come in and declare an interest.
Yes, please, on agenda item 11, please.
Is it personal and prejudicial, Councillor Matthews?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is going to be the public questions. I don't believe we've had any, Mr. Boson. No questions? Okay, thank you. The next item is the Eston inspection outcomes for the local government education services in Swansea, and I'd like to call on Councillor Robert Smith, please.
Yeah, thank you, Presiding Member, and it is a genuine pleasure to move this report and to thank once again the officers that were involved, led by Helen Morgan-Rees, and also the elected members, in particular Councillor Mike Dirk as chair of the Education CDC, and Councillor Lyndon Jones as chair of the Scrutiny Committee, who both played a leading role during the inspection. You'll notice in the report it covers the period from 2013, and it would be remiss of me not to mention and thank former Councillor Jen Rayner for her leadership in the period from 2013 to 2021, because this report covers a time when she was the cabinet member. You'll note in section 2.1 of the report the conclusion that our services do not, and I quote, do not fall into a category of causing significant concern. And I think that belies the fact that this is a very positive reflection on the education services provided here in Swansea and the local authority education services. There is strong support for schools, and there are strong support for pupils at risk of disengagement, two crucial functions for this council. I won't read the whole report. You'll be glad to know I'm not going to read it word for word, but there are some phrases in here which I feel need to be referred to this evening. Ambitious aspiration, clear commitment to the best education for each child, effective culture of self-improvement, effective collaboration, excuse me, learner well-being and welfare is a priority, support for learners with behavioural and emotional difficulties, and we conduct regular and transparent reviews with well-established monitoring and quality assurance. Now, those are all features of highly effective education support services, and they are features that we want to maintain here in Swansea. The ALN transformation has been singled out. Better Start in Life has been singled out. The education of children educated other than at schools is singled out, and the anti-poverty work undertaken by this council is singled out. So this, as I said, is a positive picture. It endorses the work that we've done to date, but I don't think we can regard this as an end in itself. This is a basis on which we can move forward as a council. It contains evidence of where we have improved and where we can improve. And I think it forms a firm basis for us to move forward in the next 5 years with our schools and with our other partners. So I would formally move the report, Presiding Member.
Councillor Stewart, you seconding?
Yeah, Thank you, Presiding Member. I will second the report. Obviously, it's a fantastic report, but I just also wanted to pay tribute to the work done by Councillor Smith since he's taken over as Cabinet Member, and he has continued, as he said, the good work that was undertaken by Jen Rayner, but also all of the officers, including Helen Morgan-Rees, who have made a real impact on our education. So just to pay tribute to the work that's been done, I think we should be really proud of our education service, and certainly that's reflected in the report.
Councillor Holly, did you wish to speak? No? No. I got
No,
Councillor,
Councillor Jones, Jeff.
sorry, I got Councillor Lyndon Jones first, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Presiding Member. I'd like to congratulate the education service in Swansea. I have, on behalf of the scrutiny panel, written to Helen Morgan-Rees, our director, and asked her to pass on our thanks to the team. It is a good report. I'd also like to thank the scrutiny panel, as Councillor Smith very kindly did, but they've worked very hard over the last number of years and worked as a critical friend, and I think that was recognised by Eston. But a really good report. It's a real good basis to build on education for the future in Swansea.
Thank you, Councillor Lyndon Jones. Councillor Mary Jones.
Thank you, Presiding Member. And yes, congratulations. I did congratulate Councillor Smith, and I think well done to the whole of the Education Department. But I have got a question, which is 2.3, which is one of the 2 recommendations that the local authority should address. Actually reading it, if I was a member of the public, I'd be totally confused, because it says here, education institutions and work-based learning providers will be involved in the development of the strategies to ensure local learning pathways are fully utilised within the context of local curriculum drivers and consideration of opportunities for employment within Swansea Bay City Deal. Can I ask, what are the drivers? What is the time frame? And could somebody please write that perhaps in plain English that somebody else could understand it? It's obviously been written by education.
It has been written by education, and it could be translated into English, but I think it might be better in Welsh. I'll translate it into Welsh if you want. I think, that in terms of it, let's start with a time scale. I think that it's not a task unfinished. It's an ongoing piece of work, but it's something that is already a priority for us as an administration. What we are looking at are the future skills needs, the future learning needs of all young people and children, young people across the whole of Swansea. What we want is that whatever path they choose to take, whether it's an academic path or it's a vocational path, that they are given those opportunities here in Swansea, and that they have the skills to take advantage of the opportunities that we hope will arise through the city deal and other economic opportunities here in Swansea. So it's getting that balance between learner choice and where they're heading, because at some point every child and young person will be looking to the future and will be looking to earn a livelihood, and we want them to be able to do that where they choose, and if they choose to do it here, to do it here.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Jeff Jones.
Yeah, following on the recommendation, the second recommendation on page 18, 2.4, about the strengthened Welsh medium provision across all ages and areas of the local authority. I can see the plan as approved by Cabinet, and it's got to be, I can see an action plan needs to be produced to deliver this vision alongside stakeholders, Penrhyddiaeth Addysg Cymraeg Abertawe. When is this plan? Is there some sort of date when this plan is actually going to be put in place?
The WESP has already been adopted. The action plan is in progress.
So is there a completion date when the plan, it's in progress, so the plan is...
Yeah, we are working on it. We will be working with partners to develop that. Well, we are working with partners to develop it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dirk.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I just wanted to say very quickly, as Chair of the CDC, how heartened it was for all the committee members to see this excellent report. but we weren't really surprised. What we've seen is a sense of true partnership at every level, I think, from the cabinet member and the director all the way through all the officers within the education department, but then also very importantly, governing bodies and chairs of governing bodies in schools, the heads and their teams, parents and communities. And we see in this sort of real true partnership. And that was one of the most heartening things I thought that came through this report. We continue to challenge at every level as we look at the future policy direction for education in Swansea, and we get the response of energy, enthusiasm and professionalism. So I'd echo the comments of the cabinet member and also Lyndon as the chair of scrutiny. We have challenges ahead and we are, I think, well placed to meet them as we continue to step together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Dirk. We got a mover and a seconder for motion. Yeah, it's all been done. Okay, so we're going to move to the vote then. You see the recommendation is on page 17, and that's the council notes the findings from the 2022 Eston inspection. Can I have votes for, please? Anybody against? Any abstentions? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the implementation of Renting Homes Wales Act 2016. And call on Councillor Andrew Lewis, please.
Thank you, Presiding Member. And I know members have had the report in advance, but I think it's important to highlight some of the salient points which will impact on us as a social landlord. It's referenced in 1.1, but obviously the Renting Homes Wales Act 2016 is the biggest change to housing law in Wales that we've seen for decades. So this is hugely impactful and will have a major impact on how we do business going forward. The Act sets out the rights and the responsibilities of both tenants and landlords and ensures greater clarity through the requirement of written occupation contracts. These are currently known as tenancy agreements, and the Act aims to standardise these for all renters. This improvement is of particular importance for tenants in the private rented sector as well. But the proposal is, as you see in the recommendations, that on the 1st of December, we will begin to change the tenancy agreements to those occupation contracts for our tenants. There will be changes to terminology. So there will be two types of landlords: community landlords, which are councils, and the registered social landlords, essentially the housing associations, and private landlords, which covers all other landlords. The tenancy agreements, known as occupation contracts, will be of two main types. There will be secure occupation contracts. This is for use by community landlords, and as I said, will replace the current secure tenancy agreements used by councils. The standard occupation contract will be the default contract for private rented sector. Tenants will be known formally, and I stress formally, as contract holders. I've had certainly conversations with our tenants, and they're not really in favour of being referred to as contract holders because it seems so formal. So I feel on an informal basis, we will still continue to refer to people as our council tenants, respecting their wishes. 2.6 shows the existing tenancy agreements will convert, as I've said, on the 1st of December. That, as you can imagine, is going to be a major piece of work. It may create a little bit of confusion for council tenants. So it's important, as advocates of this council, that councillors are aware of why we're doing this. And I'd appreciate it if people do come to you, please give them reassurance that this is something that we have to do and is in no way trying to endanger their long-standing tenancy contracts, which some of them will have had from generation to generation with us. 2.7 relates to ending occupation contracts and secure contracts. So within the social housing sector, as is the case with secure tenancies now, secure contracts can only be ended where there is a breach of contract or under estate management grounds. Again, I'd appreciate if you could relate that, give that assurance to tenants. And then 2.8, ending occupation contracts, standard contracts. This obviously relates to the private rented sector. So where there is a no-fault notice issued, the minimum notice period must be 6 months, and a landlord will not be able to give such a notice until 6 months after the contract starts, giving, of course, some further security to tenants in the private rented sector. And it's important to note that the longer notice period currently only applies to occupation contracts issued post 1st of December. A landlord will not be able to serve notice, a private landlord will not be able to serve notice, unless they have completed certain obligations, including registration and licensing with Rent Smart Wales, meeting the fitness for human habitation requirements and deposit protection rules. You will see noted, and I won't relay these, but at 2.9 you will see the repairs and fitness for human habitation referred to there. 2.10 relates to the joint contracts. So this is contract holders can request to their landlord that they can add another person to the contract. Very important, 211 highlights enhanced succession rights. So improved succession rights in certain circumstances enable both a priority and reserve successor to succeed the occupation contract. This allows for up to 2 successions to the contract to take place, for example, a spouse followed then by another family member. And as members may know from situations which have occurred in their wards, this hasn't been the case, and I feel is an important addition to how we do business. 2.12 relates to rent increases, specifically in terms of the notice period, which will change from 1 month to 2 months. This will affect us as a local authority in terms of every year, you will know we bring a report in March. That report will now be brought forward at the earlier time of February. More importantly, at item 6, introductory tenancies are a major change on a local level for this council. So the proposal is that we end our traditional introductory tenancies. This has been in place, as you may know, since 2012. The reason for this and the rationale for this is that actually introductory tenancies do give fewer tenancy rights than a secure tenancy option would give. And actually, we haven't really had the need in terms of antisocial behaviour. This has only been enacted twice since the introduction in 2012. And we do have other methods of tackling antisocial behaviour. And also, likewise with rent arrears, this council is not about punishing people for falling into debt. Actually, we are taking a more proactive approach and trying to help people and prevent them from falling into rent arrears. But if there are significant arrears, even after that support is applied, then the secure contract would still give us the same rights to be able to evict as an absolute last resort. You will see on 6.9, I won't read them out individually, but over the past few years, new ways of working with tenants, as I've referred to in terms of antisocial behaviour and rent arrears, have been introduced, which are at odds with the blunter tool of introductory tenancies, and they're included at that point. There are financial implications raised at point 8 and 8.2, and there are no legal implications. So with that, presiding member, I'm happy to move the recommendations as stated on page 24, and happy to take any questions. Sorry, I'm not sure whether I mentioned introductory tenancies will only apply to new tenants. So new tenants will go on to the occupation contracts. With that, Chair, happy to move the report and happy to take questions.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And it's nice to see this Act, which was one of the last substantive acts I worked on as an Assembly member in 2016, move from the status of forever delayed to imminent. I think that it's been regrettable it's taken 6 years to actually bring this Act into force. And certainly I know in the housing sector, it has been much anticipated and much and many are being very concerned at the fact that the Welsh Government has taken so long to bring in some of these measures, which are much needed and very welcome. A number of points, I think, first of all, it's also regrettable, I think, that, and this was an issue which was raised during the passage of the Act, this is Welsh Government, not the Council, that the Welsh Government didn't take the opportunity to strengthen the housing health and safety rating system. I know a number of Assembly members back in 2016 were very, very concerned that that was fairly weak and needed some strengthening to improve the condition of properties in the private sector. And it seems that the Welsh Government, despite all the discussions that went on at that time, have not actually gone ahead and done that, which is regrettable. But there we are where we are. It is, however, pleasing to see that they have put in references to electrical safety, carbon monoxide detectors and smoke detectors, which were very, very strongly lobbied for at the time, and again very much needed, particularly in the private sector. I just wanted to comment on introductory tenancies. As you said, Cabinet Member, the introductory tenancy situation in Swansea has been very rarely used, and I think it's right that we no longer have them. They haven't proved to be a particularly effective measure, and I think when we introduced them in this authority, we were a bit umming and ahhing about whether or not we should do it, and we decided to give it a go, and it really hasn't actually given us any additional powers, and that's evident by the fact it's been rarely used. However, there is still an issue I should identify around antisocial behaviour. I notice in 6.9 the various bullet points in terms of the powers available to the local authority in terms of tackling antisocial behaviour. However, as many members will know, when they come across antisocial behaviour within council properties, it does tend to be protracted. It's very difficult to get a handle on it or do anything with it. And some of these measures here don't seem to be, either officers are not able to introduce them or they don't seem to be as effective as they should do. And it does seem to me that it might be useful actually to hold a seminar on antisocial behaviour in council properties so that members can not just understand better what powers are available to council officers, but also so that we can raise with them issues which we have in our own ward and discuss with them how we might strengthen those powers so they can use that. Because I think antisocial behaviour is an issue, and I think the ultimate resort, the last resort of eviction is never used because frankly the courts don't grant the eviction when you ask for it, and that's a reality which every housing officer has to face. They know they can only go so far. They can threaten eviction, but they know the courts just won't evict, particularly if there are children involved, and that is an issue which I think we're all facing. So it might be useful, I think, to have a further discussion around antisocial behaviour with officers in which we can do that. So I very much welcome the fact that this Act is now being brought into force. A bit disappointed that they're still consulting on bits and bobs here, which particularly how they can strengthen it, because the sort of thing they're consulting on was intended to happen anyway back in 2016. They sort of just backtracked on it and now they're going forward on it again. It does seem to me that Welsh Government is causing its own problems for itself. And I know that in anticipation of this Act coming in on the 1st of December, a number of private sector landlords have taken advantage of that and issued no-fault evictions, which has put further pressure on the housing department in this authority. And again, I put that solely at the door of the Welsh Government who have taken their time to bring this Act into force and have put tenants in that situation. So with that suggestion, Cabinet Member, can I welcome this report?
Thank you, Councillor Black. Councillor Rice.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome this report as well and mirror many of the comments that Councillor Black said, and also thank him and his colleagues in the Assembly for their work that they did on this and for bringing it forward. Just to pick up a couple of points, from a perspective really of enforcement and resourcing, obviously with 5.2 and the elements of the Act that are coming in public health, we're likely to probably get a greater awareness, hopefully, of people's rights and also of what they can look to try and complain about in terms of especially private landlords. I think the key thing will be the pressure then that comes onto the local authority to support those people in any enforcement or advice situations. And I just want to know, because I've seen in Section 8, it mainly covers our own responsibilities as a landlord. What are we doing, in terms of responsible to wider society, in terms of people who could come forward and ask questions regard to private landlords?
Councillor Lewis, do you want to come in? Yep.
Yeah, if I can respond to Councillor Black first, and I think actually the enforcement side of it doesn't actually sit with me, it's actually with Councillor Hopkins, so I'll ask Councillor Hopkins to respond to that part. First of all, I welcome Councillor Black's support in terms of the removal of introductory tenancies. I should have added that we will continue to support new tenants in terms of budgeting and taking on a home for the first time. And so that will obviously help them sustain their tenancy as well. So that support will be in place. In terms of Councillor Black's request, I probably should highlight that this specific report is about tackling antisocial behaviour, trying to use that introductory tenancy as a stick as opposed to a carrot, and it's not working. But I do recognise that outside of that, there is still an issue with antisocial behaviour in our neighbourhoods. And I'm happy to support a seminar on us discussing how we can tackle that going forward. I do feel that there is an increase in antisocial behaviour for various reasons. And I won't go into that in any depth today because I think a seminar could, completely cover those issues and hopefully work together to try and address those. So happy to support the suggestion of a seminar, and I'll pass over to my colleague to answer Councillor Evans' question.
Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, Councillor, what I would say that this will have implications to the private sector, and the responsibility for enforcement do fall under our Public Health Department, under Paula Livingstone. And what I would say, we do work very closely and trying to raise standards with the private landlords, but it is quite difficult. But we are very proactive at doing so, and this act will strengthen that.
Councillor Stewart.
Yeah, just to formally second the report, Presiding Member.
Okay, we have a mover and a seconder. So can I take a vote, please? Those voting, the recommendations are on page 24. There are 3 recommendations. I'll take them all at the same time. So can I have a vote for, please? I'm going to hold on a little minute because there's a bit of a lag on the online. Okay, anybody against? And any abstentions? Okay, that report is moved. Thank you very much. The next item is the HMO licensing policy, and I'll call on Councillor David Hopkins, please.
Yeah, thanks, Presiding Member. This report is very much tidying up exercise. There'll be no reflection of the changes of any houses that's contained within the licence area under the licence policy. All this seems to try to clear up is particularly with the creation of the new waterfront ward. This solely brings us back in as a tidying up exercise so that it is legally substantial going forward. So that's all it is, an amendment to the policy we brought forward in 2020. And I so move.
Yeah, happy to second, Chair.
Okay, no questions. Okay, the recommendations are on page 48, and it's that the council is asked to approve an addendum to the existing HMO licensing policy to change the ward names in the policy to Uplands, Castle, St Thomas and Waterfront as set out in appendices B, C, D and E, and that these appendices are added to the HMO licensing policy. I'll take the votes for, please. Any against? No, and any abstentions? Again, the report is moved. Thank you very much. The next item is going to be the honorary freedom of the City and County of Swansea for Kevin Johns, MBE, and I call on Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you, Chair. Gives me pleasure to move this report to give honorary freedom of the city to Kev Johns, who many people will know has been a servant of the city for many years, and no doubt say more if we could move on to do the formal ceremony.
Please. Oh, Councillor Holly.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Can I have the pleasure in formally seconding the motion that Kevin Johns, MBE, receives the freedom of the city?
Councillor Holly, call on Councillor Lyndon Jones, please.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Very happy to support the recommendation that Kevin Johns receives the freedom of the city.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. We've got a mover and a seconder, so we'll move to the recommendations on page 60. And that there are two recommendations that honorary freedom of the City and County of Swansea is granted to Kevin Johns, MBE, and the ceremonial council meeting be held on the 8th of December 2022 at 2 p.m. to confer the title of the honorary freedom. Can I have votes for, please? Any against? No. And any abstentions? Okay, that's moved then. Thank you. We move on to item 12, and that's councillors' questions. And the first question is from councillors Rebecca Fogarty, Sarah Keaton, Mike Lewis, Wendy Lewis, etc. Any supplementaries, please? Rebecca Fogarty, sorry.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks very much for the response. I've got a couple of supplementaries just because there are some exciting developments in this space. So I'm sure we're all very pleased to see the development on the front of Mumbles Skate Park. It seems to be moving at pace, which is absolutely fantastic. I'm sure we'll be brushing off our skateboards when it opens in the coming months. I think the success of that project is in no small part rather, to ongoing and sustained engagement with the skate community, with the local community, schools, people from different backgrounds, including wheelchair users, to ensure it's really accessible. So my first question is, how will Swansea Council ensure that they're engaging in this way with the relevant stakeholders? And then secondly, I noticed this week the prior information notice has gone out on Sell to Wales. Just wondering what the timescales are for that procurement and what the next steps will be. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fogarty. In terms of the engagement with the community, we've been very keen to make sure that the skater fraternity assist us in designing and giving us their views in terms of what they would like to see in terms of skate provision. Interestingly, I think the initial feedback that we've had is that they're very keen that we replicate the sort of approach that has been taken by collaboration with Mumbles Community Council. And again, I commend the Community Council for the work they've done to deliver that facility. I think there is a clear steer we're getting from the skating community that they would like to see more facilities like that and of that scale in the city. So that is one of the considerations we will need to make in terms of that. But we're also, of course, looking to see what we can do to enhance the facilities that already exist in many of our parks for skaters. So again, we're looking at potentially how we can do both. And that is the intention here. If the funding allows, then that is certainly where we'd like to go. In terms of the PIN notice, obviously there are standard set timescales for that. I think they are 6 to 8 weeks in terms of the notice. And obviously, once we get the response back from that, then obviously Cabinet will meet to make the decision. Thank you.
Councillor Black.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just wanted some clarification. The question refers to £1 million previously pledged for skate and other wheeled sports sites in Swansea. But in the answer, there's a reference to only £500,000 earmarked. Is there another £500,000 which is not referred to in this question? And if so, what is that earmarked for?
Yes, there were a number of announcements, as you know. So there were announcements on park investment, which started at around £1 million and has now topped £5 million, and that's delivering parks across the city. And obviously, that's one of the other questions that has been submitted. In terms of skate, though, yes, it's £1 million that will be available to enhance skate facilities. So it's 500,000 originally, and there's a further 500,000. So £1 million is the entire budget for skate facilities.
Councillor Mary Jones.
Thank you. I've previously asked the question. I think I actually emailed Councillor Robert Francis Davis and asked, there's supposed to be a skate strategy being developed, and it doesn't obviously make reference in here about the strategy, but it does say about the options. Can you tell me, are you any further forward, and when will this strategy be finalised so people can actually see it? Yeah,
it'll form part of the decision-making process as I said in my response to Councillor Fogarty, we've been engaging with the skater fraternity, taking their soundings in terms of what they'd like to see. That will inform the strategy and how we deliver the facilities across Swansea, whether or not we deliver more smaller facilities or whether we deliver larger, more strategic facilities, and how and if and where we invest in our existing ones.
Thank you. We move on to question 2, and that's from Councillor Mike Lewis. Any supplementaries?
No supplementary.
We move on then to question. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I'm very little. Just to I welcome the development of the Swansea Point Park. I just wondered if there was an opportunity for an update on the SA1 parks that are due to be built.
Yes, the Cabinet, and I've met with the relevant Cabinet members. We've been looking at those parks which are being delivered through the 106 contributions, and as you'll be aware, we were successful in securing those. The delivery of those schemes is underway, so that we should see the physical delivery of the facilities in due course. I know the residents have had varying views about where they would like to see those facilities placed, and again, what we're looking to do is to make sure they're in the best place for the community of Waterfront.
Thank you. We move on to question 3 then, and that's over
No
to Councillor
supplementary.
Black.
No
No
supplementary.
supplementaries, thank you. Question 4, Councillor Will Thomas. Is Francesca?
I've taken my thing out. No supplementary. Thank you.
Thank you. And move on to question 5, and it's from Councillor Chris Holly.
Thank you very much, President. Can I thank the Cabinet member for the answer? And we're actually really pleased that the grant is actually holding its own and doing a very good job with the people that are there. I hope it continues. The one thing I would ask is that, as I think all councils are aware, that it is an older building and it does need a lot of upkeep. So I was wondering if there is a current plan on what maintenance would be carried out in there, and if there's a risk register or some form of survey that's been done on the building to give us an update on what maintenance requirements are needed for it, and so that we can keep enjoying that Grand Theatre for many years to come.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. In Councillor King's absence, Councillor King has had a bereavement, which is the reason he's not here this evening. In terms of the grant, Councillor Holly may know that Race Council Cymru are currently occupying part of the building, and therefore they, in terms of their occupation, attracted grants which have helped refurbish some of the areas at the top of the Grand. There was also a levy placed on seats and ticket sales for the Grand, which has created a fund. And for those who have visited the theatre recently will see that there's been new carpets, painting, etc. that takes place. So there's an ongoing maintenance programme, and there is a fund which is regularly topped up through the sale of tickets.
Thank the leader for his answer, because I think all of us are concerned that this final building is kept going. I think one of the things that scrutiny may want to look at is how the future of the Grand is maintained, and what is the requirement of some sort of sinking fund that has been set up for by the sales of the seat, the additional money that's put on each of the seats. So I look forward to seeing that, and at some stage in the scrutiny programme. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holly. We move on to question 6 then, and that's from Councillor Jeff Jones.
Oh, I didn't have my hand up quick enough. It's a similar question really to Chris Hawley's. I also thank the Cabinet member for the response. The Cabinet member has quite rightly highlighted concerns surrounding the pressures on customers' finances, which I feel will increase with the current and forecast economic climate. Given that the theatre will be in a more competitive market to attract these shrinking finances, will the Grand continue to be in a position to maintain its ongoing viability?
Well, look, the cost of living crisis is hitting every area of the UK and was made much worse by the debacle of the Trust's Kwarteng mini budget. So, you know, there has been pain all round. Bank of England today is saying that we're in for the longest recession the UK has ever known. And of course, we wait with bated breath for the wonderful budget that's due to come on the 17th of November. I think the government were very wise to move it from Halloween, because I think that would have been a press writer's feast. But I think it's still going to be a scary experience for all of us, if you forgive the pun. But in terms of the grant, to be more serious, I think the establishment of the arena should be seen as a boost for the Grand, because it's about complementary programming. We've got Grand Ambition, who are there now to create new and curate new cultural program for the Grand. And again, you know, with the arena attracting regular acts to Swansea, Swansea's place then on the circuit for travelling shows and events will assist the Grand in terms of its programming for years to come. So yes, I think we're in for a bumpy ride across every area of life in the UK for the next few years, but we will continue to support the Grand to be as successful as it can be.
Thank you. The next question then is Councillor Sam Pritchard.
Yeah, no supplementaries, Chair, just to thank the Cabinet member really, and to say how proud I am to see that as a council we are investing in wards right across the city, and I'm sure our residents will be really pleased with the response. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Black.
Thank you, Chair. I support what Councillor Pritchard has said. Very much welcome the introduction of these teams, which are long overdue and a major asset to every ward in the city. It is obviously very early days, but I do think there are some adjustments need to be made to the way these are operating. At the moment, they seem to be set up for the benefit of officers, not for the councillors. You put your submission in, you don't get a copy, you're not able to monitor how it's being taken. You rely on them telling you when they come to your ward and sending photographs, which doesn't happen. I had to chase mine up today to know what's been done in my ward, though I had obviously seen some of the work being done, and the work being done is absolutely excellent. And the other thing is it's very difficult to actually monitor the days which have been allocated to you. So, you know, each council has been allocated so many days, and monitoring that allocation is very difficult without having that information come to you. So I just ask whether we can have a look at the system to try to make it more councillor friendly, so that we can actually monitor the work that's going on, monitor the days which we've used, and ensure that what we've been submitted is being dealt with in a prompt manner, which at the moment it certainly is. Thank you, Chair.
Anderson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Sam Pritchard, and yourself for those kind words. Yes, it is early days, Councillor Black. Sadly, at the moment, until they bed in, we haven't got the resources to feed back to you, but I'm sure in the near future we will be looking at that, so that you can get copies of works that you've put in, so you know, and all the other members. I would like to take this time as well, Chair, to put it on record. These teams, the compliments that the council is getting are astronomical, and I would like to pay thanks to Paul Owens and CWAT's team for all the hard work that they are doing. Thank you.
Councillor Anderson. Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Chair. I think you mentioned that we weren't in a position to expect feedback. Well, I have to say I have been given excellent feedback. So I think that needs to be fed back. I've been in touch with the cleansing operatives website, whatever, and whatever question I've asked, I've had a response, and I've had explanations given. So I am very, very pleased. I just wish that I was blessed with more than 2 days a month. I don't know how 2 days a month pans out in a ward such as Gower, which is quite large, but even in my more modest ward of Pentlegare, I would be delighted if I could have more than 2 days a month, because I am very pleased that we have got this service going now. It is great.
Thank you, Councillor Stewart. Do you want to come in?
Oh, okay.
You answer first.
Thanks, Councillor Fitzgerald. Yes, you're only entitled to two days, but if you, you've got all that money in your community budget, if you would like to do what Castle and Uplands are doing, please put an application in for, and we'd consider it. Pardon? And Norriston, yes.
Sorry, Leader, did you want to come back?
No, Councillor Anderson, absolutely right, as always. You can of course supplement your budget. We do it in Morriston, we do it in Castle, and we do it elsewhere. So you can buy extra days, but of course the teams that have been deployed were a political commitment that we made in the election, and we were pleased to be able to deliver it, because we've now placed operatives under the control of the local councillor, so that local issues can be resolved quickly. So yes, by all means, buy some more days, and I'm sure they'll do a fantastic job for you.
Okay, Councillor Fitzgerald.
Just to remind the leader that we councillors in single member wards have to be extremely circumspect with our money, and lavish expenditures on cleansing is not always an option, and that's why if people go through Pentlegare, they often see me out with a blue bag and a litter picking stick. It's a DIY system in single member wards.
Well done, Councillor Fitzgerald. Councillor.
I'm not sure what Councillor Fitzgerald's day rate is, but I'm sure she offers very good value. Can I also say, of course, when Councillor Fitzgerald was part of the previous administration, community budgets were only £1,000 a year, and we've raised them to £15,000 a year to give you the headroom to be able to get those services.
Yeah, but you've got more money than anyone else. So look how much money you've got, millions and millions. So that's how we've done it.
I said we may be able to take orders for all our wards if Councillor Fitzgerald is offering. Right.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. No, I just want to put on record to our thanks from Mumble's point of view. The team have been absolutely fantastic. Credit where it's due. I know we're always the first to criticise the council for everything that goes wrong, but I have to say the team have been fantastic. It's not just single member wards, Councillor Fitzgerald. I know Andrew and I have been out with a litter picker ourselves. We've invested in 4 in Mumbles, and we ourselves have been going out and about. So, but thank you very much to the team for the excellent work. But I do agree with the single member wards. I know Gower is a big ward to cover, and we do put a lot of pressure on Gower, so perhaps maybe an extra few days wouldn't go amiss. But thank you.
Councillor O'Connor.
And our 2 children have also been out with us as well.
So, a lot of ice cream.
A lot of ice cream.
Councillor Richard Lewis, no? So the next question then, and that's from Councillor Jess Pritchard.
No supplementaries, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Wright. Sorry, I can't always see you. If you just shout to me if I don't see you.
Thank you. Just a quick question for the leader. Obviously, welcome investment in the Swansea corridor and the area there. Could you please provide us with a breakdown in writing between the investment in here, which is coming from the public sector, from the council itself, and from the private sector for each of the projects?
Yes, happy to do that, but I can confirm, obviously, subject to final agreement, Skyline's investment will be of the order of around £45 million, I believe. In terms of the pontoons and the other developments, I'll get the financial figures on that. In terms of the powerhouse, that's a £10 million investment, partly funded by the Heritage Lottery grant. And then in terms of the master plan, that is something I think we've already reported to council in terms of that. That was a plan which we paid for as a council in order to be able to take forward the developments, but I can again share that detail again with members.
Thank you, Councillor Stewart. Sorry, Councillor Hodge.
I know that in the cabinet meeting, a lot of this is in confidence, camera, mainly due to the confidential nature of it. But as soon as it's possible, it would be, I think, to the benefit of the whole council and the people of Swansea to know what the actual cost of Skyline and any other project that is going to enhance the River Towie corridor. Thank you.
So the next question is from Councillor Will Thomas. I don't think he's here. Councillor O'Brien or O'Connor?
No further comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Move on. Oh, sorry, Councillor Mary Jones. Sorry.
So if I can just ask a question as a cabinet member, it's in the response, it's saying about the vision and saying that fostering is obviously the better outcome for young people. But then it says we're expanding our in-house residential homes and hope to have more local homes run by the local authority in the next 12 to 18 months. Have we changed our strategy then? Because if I recall, it was recommended that you didn't have so many children's homes and you did actually focus on foster families, which it says gives the better outcome than young people having to be placed in our local authority homes.
I think the strategy very much is, first and foremost, to provide that early help and support to enable children, young people to stay with their families or in wider sort of guardianship orders and things like that. But yes, and then secondly, to boost through Foster Swansea, Foster Wales, our number of foster carers and make sure that adequate support is in place. I think, unfortunately, we do find that we have increasing need of placements that is out sort of stripping demand outstripping supply in that sense, and also increasing complexity of cases. So and as a result of that, especially in sort of emergency provision, we do need that in-house facilities, and so that's what we're looking to develop at the moment. We took a report to scrutiny this week about that, so you might want to watch that back with a bit and have a look at the papers from that with a bit more detail.
Thank you, Councillor Gibbard. We move on to question 9, and that's from Councillor Wendy Lewis.
No supplementaries.
Question 10 is from Councillor Will Thomas or Councillor.
Yes, thank you. I noticed that the community liaison officer is to be employed. Do we know at what stage in the process that will happen, please?
I will get the member a written answer on that one.
We move on to question 11, and that's from Councillor Francesca O'Brien or Councillor O'Connor.
Yeah, thank you, Presiding Member. Yeah, we would still be interested in looking at, only because of the sheer volume of people that have contacted us with an interest in the shorter term lets. I do appreciate that does come with extra cost, and obviously that may not be suitable at the moment, but we would still be interested in looking at that further and to see if it is a viable option. Thank you.
Chair, could I ask a supplementary in this question, please?
Oh, Councillor Mike, wait.
Yeah, can I just ask if you believe that the leader believes that the council are providing value for money when for letting out the beach huts? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. If I've understood you right there, it was around the value of the huts. Yeah, I think they offer extremely good value currently. I think if we were to compare them, for instance, to Bournemouth Council, which I think have huts, I think a Tory-controlled council, I think they're charging 2,500 for 6 months, is my understanding. So I think the Swansea Labour-led council is offering extremely good value compared to our Tory colleagues in England.
Thank you for your reply.
Okay, calm down, children, calm down. Did you wish to speak, Councillor?
Thank you, Presiding Member. Well, perhaps maybe we should take Councillor Stewart's advice and let's look at what Bournemouth Council under a Conservative government are doing. Let's raise it up a little bit and perhaps we can fill that gap maybe.
I'm sure we'll quote you on that in a future political leaflet.
Okay, we move on to question 12, and that's from Councillor Mike Lewis.
Yes, I have a supplementary. I note that the leader has touched upon this in his reply, but can the leader confirm that it was a most astute move on behalf of our 151 officer to secure borrowing for the council at unprecedentedly low rates, given the announcement today of huge rise in the Bank of England base rate.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Lewis. Absolutely. I think Ben Smith, our Chief Finance Officer, should be absolutely commended for the advice he gave and the decisions that we took to borrow at that rate. I mean, members who were in the chamber at the time will recall Councillor Jeff Jones raising concerns and worries about us borrowing, and I think you know, it's the absolutely proved to be the right decision, because if we were going to borrow today, because of the impacts of the Truss government and what happened there to drive up market rates, we would now be borrowing at 3 times the rate that we borrowed previously. Direct impact of Tory government mismanagement that's left not just councils with facing larger bills for borrowing, but also households who will now be facing higher mortgage rates on their properties. The good news for us, though, is in that borrowing, we locked it in for 50 years at the rate that we borrowed. So we are unaffected by the chaos created by the Tories in London.
Councillor Black.
Thank you, Chair. My recollection is Councillor Jones was referring to the volume of borrowing as opposed to the timing of the borrowing, and of course we have got further borrowing coming through, which is going to the new rates are going to hit us on that. My question is in relation to the current energy cap, which, as you say in the reply, is going to end on the 1st of April. Do we have any indication the cost of the council if that energy cap is not renewed, and are you aware of any discussions going on at the moment which may relieve us from the fear that it will not be renewed? Is there likely to be another energy cap?
Well, certainly the mood music coming out of London at the moment is that they are unable to give a commitment to extend the cap any further. We'll find out with everybody else on the 17th when they announce the budget. But as I said in my leader's comments, our current estimate, if we were to lock in and pre-buy now, it would be of the order of £20 million as opposed to our current energy costs of £5 million. And of course, half our energy is used in our schools estate, so that will be pressure that falls directly on our school buildings, and the majority of the rest of our energy is used in community buildings or in our care homes. So they're in areas where it is impossible to make a saving if the rates of energy do go up to that level. Yeah.
Councillor, want to come back in, Chris?
Yeah, thank you, Presiding Member. The heating costs are going to be extraordinary, and as a result of that, I'm sure that Freedom Leisure, who run our leisure centres, are going to come back in, and I'm sure the leader can confirm that the costs of heating our pools, etc., and our community centres, not so much the community centres, but the centres that Freedom Leisure currently run for us, are going to go up, and as a result, we probably will have a bill off them. I think they can count if the leader can confirm that.
If I understood the question, it was around the fact that clearly leisure centres are disproportionately hit. That is absolutely true. I mean, it's expensive at any time to heat swimming pools, but clearly with the energy costs going up by that to the degree that they have, operators like Freedom Leisure are being hit, and we are obviously in discussions with our leisure operators, as councils across the country are where they're operating, to see what we can do. We are not opposed to assisting, but that assistance has to be one that we can trace and that we can be confident will be used to support facilities in Swansea and not the broader business.
Exactly the answer that I wanted to hear from the leader, because I understand that in another part of the country, Freedom Leisure are actually handed the keys back to a couple of their some of their leisure centres, or they've reduced the availability for a number of these facilities. So I'm happy to hear what the leader has said, and look forward to whatever outcome is, and he can report back to council.
Thank you, Councillor Holly. Councillor Rice.
Okay, a question for the leader here. Given the recent research that's been carried out by Warwick University through their energy crisis team, I think it's been shared with the members in the room here, what measures are the council looking to take to improve energy efficiency and to help households across Swansea access ways in which they can improve energy efficiency, insulation, LED lighting, things like that in their own homes? Because I know that there is support out there. And second to that question as well is it's welcome to see that the warm hubs idea has been taken forward. Is there anything more that could be shared with members or things that we could do in our local communities to identify places that could be supported by the council scheme?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Rice. I mean, I'll just take the first part of the question, but if I then hand off perhaps to Councillor Lewis and Councillor Gwilym in terms of some of the help that's there and obviously what we're doing in terms of the warm hubs. Just to say, in Swansea, through the discussions we've had, we'll be calling them Swansea hubs on the basis that we don't want to stigmatise the warm hubs in terms of people who may need to go there. We want them to be places that people feel comfortable in turning up to if they need that help. I would say in terms of the help that's out there, obviously we've been doing a fantastic job, as our teams always do, in trying to make sure people get advice, and I'm sure Councillor Lewis and Councillor Gwilym will talk about that. But I would draw members' attention to the fact that what we're living with now is the result of poor decision and poor planning for many years. People will know that many of the incentives that were there for people to convert their homes to better green technologies, to put solar on the roofs and other stuff, were removed by the Tory government some 6 or 7 years ago. And obviously we're still raw from the decision to turn down the tidal lagoon in Swansea, which we've had to look at. And again, had the government in London been keen to invest in renewables and not ban things like offshore wind, then we would be, I think, in a much better position as a country to be self-sufficient in renewable energy, and far further down the road that we need to go down now than we currently are. So it's the result of poor decision making that we're all now paying the price of.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Since we're talking about energy and the cost of energy, I really wondered if some control could be exercised over the temperature in the council chamber in future. It's nice to see some gentlemen in shirt sleeves and 1 or 2 ladies in short sleeves, but I thought we would be circumspect and have the council chamber heating at a lower level. So I'm equipped in a jumper. And I am baking, so if in future...
No, it's not going.
Are you taking orders, Councillor Fitzgerald?
Adjust the temperature of the council chamber to accord with the temperature outside, I think we would all appreciate it, and the council might save some money.
Absolutely. Can I reassure Councillor Fitzgerald, it was absolutely freezing in here and the Gloucester room just a couple of days ago. We asked for the temperature to be adjusted. It appears to have gone the other way now. So yes, we will certainly get the temperature adjusted to a much more reasonable level.
Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Presiding Member. And just in response to the offer of support which is available to residents, whether they are council tenants or owner-occupiers in Swansea, I'm really proud to say that this administration have decided to support the continuation of the energy awareness hubs, and that will also include outreach in communities. Only today, Presiding Member, I circulated for members information, the support which is available, the free, independent, impartial advice, not just through the council, but also through our Environment Centre, who are very much leading on this, and also other partners, for example, Western Power. So we will continue as a council to be the delivery vehicle of any grants and loans and support that is available. If there are things that we aren't mentioning or referencing, I'm happy to receive those from the councillor and happy to include those in our advice and our pop-up hubs in communities. But we will continue to do that because we recognise that this winter is going to be a pretty difficult, very tough winter for a lot of families in Swansea, and so that support is going to be crucial.
Thank you. Your 30 minutes question time is up, but I'm going to be kind, and there's only 2 questions left. I will let you carry on. So the next question is from Councillor Fitzgerald. Sorry, yeah, Councillor Gwilym, sorry.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Just to give some information in relation to what's known across the country as warm hubs, but Swansea are going to be called Swansea Spaces. At the moment, the Tackling Poverty team are working with our website designers to make a directory that spaces can actually register on. So it'll be mapped then for Swansea, where people will be able to go on and see exactly what provision is available in their locality. In addition to that, we're still waiting for the terms and conditions from Welsh Government in relation to the funding that they provided or they are providing. And once that's up and running, the Tackling Poverty team will be ready for applicants to apply for grants then, which is additional funding that will allow them to put on spaces or open spaces and provide an offer of teas and coffees, soup or whatever the case may be. But we will be ensuring that there is a provision across every locality in Swansea to make sure that it is fair and equitable across the city.
Thank you, Councillor William. Okay, move on to Councillor Fitzgerald then, please. It's question 13.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, well, thank you for the answer. As far as I'm concerned, data protection has got a lot to answer for. Just a general query, and I confess I haven't looked at any planning applications of late in any detail. So I'm just wondering, given that we can no longer include comments from the public, will there be any indication on the planning application of, say, the number of responses from the public? Will that be given anywhere? Sure. And, you know, general information around that kind of scenario, because in the past, it's been very useful to be able to see how many members of the public have taken the time to write in about a particular planning application, and obviously now that is all going to be lost.
No, I can reassure the councillor what don't happen is it is advertised in the public portal. It is not advertised publicly, but then sort of observations will be reported to the planning committee, and it will be noted at that point. So it is considered at the planning application stage.
Thank you. And the last question is from Councillor Lyndon Jones.
Right, thank you, presiding member. Yeah, thanks. Only one point I would ask is the fact that we say there's not going to be any we're hoping for natural regeneration. The problem you get when ash trees have been felled and start to regrow, they will be diseased again. That is the problem.
Chair, yeah, just to clarify, I don't think it's necessarily the regrowing of the ash tree, but where you leave fallen trees or felled trees in the ground, it encourages other biodiverse growth, which assists then in the regeneration of that space.
Okay, that's the end of the councillors' questions. The last item on the agenda is notice of motion, and I believe it's going to be Councillor Gibbard to move. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm pleased to be moving the motion this evening at the beginning of Islamophobia Awareness Month, and it's in the last few weeks of our year of action towards laying the foundations of us being a human rights city. I'm grateful to Councillor Elliot King, who can't be here this evening, Cabinet Member for Equalities and Culture, who has been working on this, and also to Councillor Yvonne Jardine, Champion for Inclusion. The All-Party Parliamentary Group on British Muslims was established in 2017 to highlight the aspirations and challenges facing British Muslims, to celebrate the contribution of Muslim communities to Britain, and to investigate prejudice, discrimination and hatred against Muslims in the UK. After a very long and thorough inquiry, taking evidence from a range of experts, academics, campaigners and most importantly Muslim communities across the UK, they developed this working definition of Islamophobia, which I'm asking Council today to adopt as part of our practices. This is important because by being able to define Islamophobia, it will better help us to tackle it. The issue with Islamophobia is that it encompasses elements of both racism and religious discrimination, and it makes it different to some other forms of racial or religious abuse. And it's not just about overt expressions of religious or racial hatred, but systemic discrimination and socio-economic exclusion. This is absolutely not to say that it is any worse or more worthy of action than any other types of discrimination or inequality, but it's very important to recognise that it is different and distinct. I'm sure we're all sadly aware of some of the very visible manifestations of Islamophobia. and Home Office statistics show that over 40% of religiously motivated hate crime targets Muslims, which is the most of any faith group in the UK. There are very worrying growing social attitudes towards Muslims in the UK. Recent polling reveals that the average Briton believes that that 15% of the population is Muslim, when it's actually just 0.5. 22% of Britons admit to having negative feelings towards Muslims. A third believe that equal opportunities have gone too far when it comes to Muslims. 22% say they would feel concerned if a Muslim family moved next door, and a staggering 47% of people said they would not be willing to accept Muslims as a member of their family. It is so sad that these sort of views are seemingly acceptable if targeted at Muslim people in a way which we perhaps would not tolerate towards any other community. We'd be naive to assume that we're immune to these sorts of attitudes in Swansea. However, what we do have is a proud history of good community relations here, interfaith work and shared values of respect. This is what we aim to build on in our ambition to become Wales's first human rights city, and it's at the heart of our ongoing commitment as a city of sanctuary. The APPG definition has already been adopted by many other councils across the UK, and also by the Labour Party, the Liberal Democrats, Plaid Cymru, SNP, and in fact I also believe the Scottish Conservatives, but shamefully not the UK Conservative Party or the UK government. Work on this was stopped by Boris Johnson, which comes as no surprise considering his appalling previous comments made towards Muslim women in particular. In adopting the definition, we in Swansea Council will be showing our solidarity with our Muslim communities and reaffirming our dedication to tackling any prejudice and discrimination that takes place in all its forms.
Thank you, Councillor Gibbard. Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. I absolutely agree with every word Councillor Gibbard said. And of course, it is not just Boris Johnson who, as Prime Minister of the UK, made awful comments about Muslim women. But of course, Suella Braverman has continued in that vein with her very ill-judged comments about migrants and those fleeing war from abroad. It really is important that we challenge that and that we do support this motion. And I do commend Councillor Gibbard for the work that she's been doing with our teams to prepare for us to make the declaration of being a human rights city later this year. And I think it's needed now more than ever, given the challenges that are faced not just in this country but around the world with persecution and war. Thank you, Chair.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have to say that any description that describes any form of racism and any form of persecution or religion has got to be right. We live in a world with enough problems. We live in a world where we've seen a war in Europe that many of us hoped that we would never see after the terrible, terrible things that happened in the 1940s and the 1910s. And here we are talking about something about hating someone for another religion or another religion. For goodness sake, it's time this world grew up. I fully support this notice of motion, and I think the vast majority of people in this country would support it. But I'm afraid we live in a country where many of the newspapers thrive, literally thrive, on seeing division, hatred. And maybe at some stage, as a council, we should think about what Liverpool did and say, why should we in this city support certain newspapers that thrive on doing this to our population? And I just throw that out because I know there are issues about what happened, but I do believe that the time has come that all of us stand up and say, we just don't want to be involved in any of this rubbish anymore. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holly. Councillor Bento.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I would like to encourage us to please support this motion, because sometimes we think about Islamophobia as though it's a distant thing, but it lives with us here in Swansea. And as an example, only last week, after an event at the Waterfront Museum, a colleague of mine and I were asked by a Muslim woman to escort her back to the safety of her car to go home. And as we were doing that, you know, we were talking about her fears, and she confirmed, but it was just for the fact that she was wearing a burqa and she's had so many Islamic slurs thrown at her. This is the danger that Islamophobia, you know, causes on lives, especially when it intersects with race and gender. And as a city of sanctuary and, you know, aspiring to be a city of human rights, no one should be made to feel unsafe on the grounds of their protected characteristics. So yes, we should support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Bentu. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I will be supporting this motion as somebody who's been brought up not in the Muslim faith but in a faith all my life. I think everybody, regardless of religion or creed, you should feel safe in your home city. And if we are aspiring to be a city of sanctuary, that is something we should be supporting. As a family member, we have family members of who practice in the Sikh and Muslim faith, and everybody should feel welcomed and supported regardless of what they preach. Thank you.
Brian,
I too will be supporting this motion and was very sad to hear that a school in Swansea recently had an animal's head thrown into their yard. And this happens very, very regularly, and it is not acceptable. Hatred of any kind is not acceptable, and I definitely will be supporting this.
Councillor Lyndon Jones.
Yeah, just to say that I too will be supporting this because I think any sort of racism is absolutely appalling. I have a lot of Muslim friends, very good friends, and I just feel sorry for people who can't see the good in other people. I think it's just appalling, and they are missing out, and I do feel in many ways sorry for them.
Councillor Jones. The next is Councillor Sam Pritchard.
Yeah, thank you, Presiding Member. I just wanted to comment as the council champion for religion, faith and belief. I think it is fundamental in any democracy for somebody to be able to practice their religion, their faith, their belief without fear of being discriminated against, persecuted against or prejudiced for what they believe and what they think. And as Councillor Gibbard has very clearly outlined, part of Islamophobia is inherently focused in not just faith and belief, but also in racism. And I think it is almost impossible to separate the two. And I'm very pleased that this motion has been brought to this council, that we will have a definition of Islamophobia. But as many of us in this chamber will hopefully support this motion, it is sad that this is a definition for us. But for many people, as we've already heard in this chamber, this is a reality. This is what people are living through and experiencing. And I'm very proud that we have an opportunity in this chamber to say that we disagree wholeheartedly with this discrimination, with this abuse, with this racism. And so I would urge everyone to proudly support this motion to show that we as a council do not accept some of the, really, the lowest of the low, to prejudice somebody for who they are and what they believe. I think it's a really great motion, but it's a really stark reminder for all of us about what some of our residents go through on a daily basis that many of us could never imagine. Thank you, Chair.
I got Councillor Black next, please.
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't going to speak in this debate, but I thought it might be useful to reflect on a fact-finding trip I took to Bosnia-Herzegovina back in 2015. And we went to Srebrenica, where, of course, there was a major massacre of Muslims. Bosnia-Herzegovina is a country which is effectively divided on religious grounds. It's got a dual government. One is a Muslim government and one is a Christian government. And that is the settlement they came to as a result of that war, where the Serbians effectively launched a religious war against Muslims in that area. The people who were massacred in Srebrenica, they were buried, they were reburied, and we visited a number of forensic pathology labs where they were trying to identify the remains which had been found on several burial sites, and the situation where some people people's bones were buried on a number of different burial sites because they'd been moved around so often to try to avoid being discovered. One lady who we met, who I think is sadly deceased since then, the only remain of her, I think it was her husband, was literally his ankle bone. That's the only identification, the only part of her husband they could find. And that is the consequence of a religious war, which took place in not in the early parts of the 20th century, but in the latter parts of the 20th century. And those sort of things are still going on all over the world. And that's why it's so important that we adopt these sorts of definitions, that we're very, very clear that we're not going to tolerate discrimination. We're not going to tolerate people being discriminated against on the basis of their religion, no matter which direction it comes from. And that's why it's so important that we pass this motion today and say to the whole world that enough is enough, because the last thing we want to see is another Srebrenica, another religious war as happened in Bosnia-Herzegovina. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Black. Councillor Gibbard, do you want to come back, please?
Yeah, just a couple of points. I'm very grateful to all the comments from across the chamber, and I completely agree with you, Councillor Holly, that I think it's definitely the media that is really driving a lot of these attitudes, and I'm particularly worried about things online and the kind of online radicalisation, especially towards the far right, that we have seen, particularly during the pandemic. Thank you to Councillor Bentu for raising the very important point about the intersectionality and how often Muslim women are particularly visible in their Muslimness because of their hijab or the burqa or things that they wear, and that's a particular issue we need to be aware of. And again, thank you to Councillor Black for that, very powerful reminder of within very recent memory how Islamophobia can manifest itself in horrific ways. I particularly want to thank for the Conservative group for their support, and could you please take this message back to your leaders in Westminster? I believe Michael Gove called the APPG definition drivel, so I would like please make that very clear to your party leaders. Thank you.
Okay, Leader, did you wish to
Chair, we'd like to call for a named vote, please.
Okay, thank you.
That's okay.
I'll let out first. Okay.
Okay, Councillor Cyril Anderson. For. Matthew Bailey, not present. Sam Bennett. For. Patience Bentu. For. Peter Black. For. John Curtis. For. Adam Davis, not present. Mike Day, not present. Phil Downing. For. Ryland Doyle. Mike Dirk. For. Kerry Evans. For. Chris Evans. For. Mandy Evans.
For.
Wendy Fitzgerald. Rebecca Forty.
For.
Nicola Furlong.
For.
Louise Gibbard.
For.
Fiona Gordon.
For.
Kevin Griffiths. For. Hayley Gullam.
For.
Joe Hale.
For.
Victoria Holland.
For.
Chris Holly. Paxton Hood Williams.
For.
Bev Hopkins.
For.
David Hopkins.
For.
Linda James. Oliver James. Oh, no, he's gone. Yvonne Jardine.
For.
Alan Jeffrey. For. Di Jenkins.
For.
Jeff Jones. Lyndon Jones.
For.
Mary Jones.
For.
Matthew Jones. No. Susan Jones.
For.
Sandra Joy.
For.
Erica Kirshner.
For.
Hannah Lawson.
For.
Andrea Lewis.
For.
Mike Lewis.
For.
Richard's gone. Wendy Lewis.
For.
Paul Lloyd. For. Michael Locke.
For.
Nicola Matthews.
For.
Penny Matthews.
For.
James McGettrick.
Sorry.
For. Hazel Morris.
For.
Francesca O'Brien. James O'Connor.
For.
Cheryl Philpott, Jess Pritchard,
4.
Sam Pritchard, Alison Pugh. No, go on. Stuart Rice. 4. Kelly Roberts,
4.
Bridget Rowland,
4.
Robert Smith, 4. Andrew Stevens,
4.
Rob Stewart,
4.
Graham Thomas, Mark Tribe, Gordon Walker, Leslie Walton,
4.
Mike White.
4.
That's it, Chairman, unanimous 4.
Thank you all. That was unanimous. Thank you all for your, that's the end of the agenda. Thank you all for your attendance and safe journey home.
Thanks. Good night, everyone.
Good night.